Well, since his appointment almost 8 months ago, the war on corruption has arguably been reinvigorated. Many have been arrested and some high-profile corruption cases are before the courts. In fact, many, especially in government, are wary every Friday when seemingly a lot of these infamous arrests are made. One of the people, the man credited for all these tremors, of course, is not alone. DPP Noordin Haji is our guest tonight. Talk to us, text us #242 on Twitter is the hashtag NEWSNIGHT. And even critics now are applauding. Thank you for making time for us tonight. But one would still add cautiously. And one of the reasons DPP is the number of cases you're handling so far, and especially the ones that are known, high profile, Kenya Power, NYS, KEBS, NCPB, National Land Commission, the governors that we're seeing in court, DCJ Mwilu, I'm sure plus many other more that are going on. I remember when, after the arrest of DCJ Mwilu, when you said that I'll coach you, your resources are limited, you cannot be everywhere at the same time. And now, for now, you're prioritizing and being strategic in your actions so as to achieve the maximum possible impact in the shortest period. And a lot is already happening from the Office of the Director of Prosecutions. Are you biting more than you can chew?
That's an interesting question. I won't say I'm biting more than I can chew. I think I can bite, but I'll just have to bite in chunks. Otherwise, you know, I'll be choked. But yes, if it's biting, I can bite. But we're also being strategic in how we're doing it, and how we're taking things on. In any process, before matters come to me, there must be investigations. Investigations are led either by complaints or by intelligence, which are then converted into evidence and brought to me to look at and then deal with them. Right.
So when you're talking about prioritizing then, does it mean there are some cases that you will strategically have to leave?
Not to leave, but maybe strategically to bring them on within the capacity that I have. Because, you know, if you go to any jurisdiction, it's not possible to deal with and choke the system itself. Otherwise, then you have backlogs, then the quality itself is compromised. So yes, strategically we will choose when to finish investigations in terms of how much resources we'll place where, and when to prosecute.
Earlier in the year, we saw you talk about 500 prosecutors handling more than 118,000 cases. And that is why I'm bringing this issue of you biting more than you can chew. Of course, you're biting already, and people can see that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, recently there's also reports in sections of media that many prosecutors are leaving the DPP's office for better remuneration and better jobs. Won't this have an effect on the quality of your cases ultimately? Does it affect you in any way?
Definitely, it will have an impact on my ability to prosecute. But that's not to say that I'm not able to replace. I'm replacing. You've also seen that we were training recently about 80 new prosecutors. And I've insisted that they have to go through a 3-month induction course, and they're taught everything to do with prosecution, which was not happening before. And therefore, as we churn out more people coming in, we're also giving them the requisite skills to be able to discharge their duties. Okay. And I believe with that in place, we'll be able to bridge the gap that we have. That we have
currently. Yes. We'll come back to that later about the staffing in your office. But talking about quality of your cases, you said before you will not take up any case or cases that are going to fail. I'll quote you on June 13, 2018, appearing before a Senate committee, talking about the ESCC having forwarded about 57 cases then on top state officers, including governors, senators, and MPs, but that serious gaps necessitated reviews. You said, and I quote you, "I assure this committee that we shall not bow to any pressure. I will not take up a case that I will know will fail. This would mean failing the Kenyan people and contravening the vow to protect public property." Are you saying the people you have presented or any other person you present before court, rest assured, will be convicted? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that I think I have the evidence to have them convicted. But we must understand that I'm not the only person there. I present the case to the judiciary, and they will have to hear it out. If they're not convinced, for whatever reasons, and I've said this before, it could be anything under the sun. It could be genuinely that the evidence I have presented maybe technically failed.
Wanting.
Yeah, not wanting, but maybe on technicalities failed, but that does not mean that we didn't have the evidence, or that maybe the threshold was not met in terms of convincing the judiciary that it's, or the judge or the magistrate, that it's beyond reasonable doubt. There are those issues. But then, as I said, we must not put our heads under the sun, in the sand, and bury it in the sand. That I will also talk about the fact that we do have corrupt police officers, we do have corrupt prosecutors, and we do have corrupt judiciary. I mean, there's always been arguments that we are revisiting, or because of the president's statement that we are revisiting with the judiciary.
Especially for the DCJ case. Yeah,
especially for that case. But I think I stand vindicated and corrected. I mean, you only have to look at the Akasha case in New York, and there are, and this will come out soon. There are judicial officers who are compromised. And I don't think anybody would stand up and say, this is revisiting. The Americans have the evidence. So when I say that there could be corrupt judicial officers, I'm not picking up or picking on the judiciary.
This is something we are probably going to see in future.
Of course.
From some of the cases you are reviewing? Yes,
I mean, there are many cases that we're reviewing, and there are many cases we are working with the CJ himself to do with the judiciary that is ongoing behind the scene.
All right. Yeah. Back to that statement where I quoted you. I mean, I really found that remark interesting, because unlike what we've seen previously with people who are charged with these agencies that fight especially corruption and crime, they seem to dilly-dally or tiptoe around these issues. But you are very direct when you said, I will not take up a case that I know will not fail.
Yes.
To me, my interpretation was
that I know will fail.
You know very well whoever you're presenting before court will be convicted. Kenyans, rest assured, will be convicted. I mean, what is it in your interpretation? What did you mean when you said that then?
I mean, as prosecutors, before we give consent to prosecute and charge, it is our responsibility to go through whatever evidence that has been presented to us. It will be fallacy and a failure on our part to accept cases that have gaps that cannot be covered, or that have evidence that have maybe been trumped up, or evidence that is weak. Because at the end, we are the ones who will fall flat on our face. Nobody then, once we take it up, talks about the investigators who are compromised, or the judiciary who is corrupt. It's always, the blame is always on the prosecutors,
right,
despite the fact that there's a chain. And I'm not willing to take that. I will look at what I have, and if I feel it has met the threshold, and we have clear policy on that, that's the only time that I will take it to court.
Will you see you blaming the chain? We've seen people before talking about this chain. That I mean, they leave Kenyans bewildered. ESCC says it is DPP says it is judiciary.
And this is where it has to stop, because the gatekeeper of the justice system is the ODPP, and I therefore have to be very strict in terms of the threshold so that the blames stop. I don't want any blame games. Once I go to the judiciary, then I will take the blame if I fail. I will not revisit it. I would rather deal with issues administratively during investigations, guide them properly, ask them to cover the areas, and then go to court. But I will not take a case that is half-baked, that hasn't met the thresholds that we have set and the guidelines that we have as prosecutors.
So for those who, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this, those who are talking about highly dramatized war against graft, especially from DCI and your office, the critics, and they actually talk of witch hunt, political or otherwise, and say ultimately these cases will fall flat. How would you respond to that?
First of all, I'm actually concerned on this. We have taken cases. We have charged individuals, be they governors or constitutional office holders, or the DCJ herself. My concern is this, that most of them still remain in office. And the sad thing is, we still have orders to allow them to enjoy whatever it is coming from the courts themselves. And some of the bail, for example, in a particular matter case to do with the governor, the bail terms are wanting. Because you saw him making presentation before development partners, international development partners, on issues development. And this is somebody who is facing a murder charge. This is somebody who is facing investigations on corruption. This is somebody who was found with guns, unexplained guns in his premises. I mean, we must have standards. And those standards need to be applied across board. And the courts need to help us. As much as there is zeal to give these people bail, and bail that are, in my opinion, and I stand guided, sometimes wanting, it just defeats the purpose of the whole exercise. When you get conservative orders asking us not to investigate individuals who hold very important offices, it is very sad. When you have individuals who have been charged and who happen to have been appointed as ambassadors in foreign countries asking for bail so that they can present their credentials in a foreign country, what message are we as Kenyans sending? The courts need to help us in this.
But legally it could be beyond the courts, because there's also the principle of innocent until proven guilty.
Well, there is innocent until proven guilty, but
So
our laws are also very clear. They need to step aside until the issue is adjudicated upon.
They've been hiding behind these laws and interpreting them differently. I mean, it's been a problem in this country. Politically, you're not supposed to talk about politics, but politically we've been waiting to see parties talk about their manifestos about corruption and actually make that clear, that if you're mentioned, you should step aside. It has never been said, and that is why people still continue to serve. But you see,
this is not about politics. This is about the law. You know,
in terms of
they have to interpret. We've tried to make the court see sense in interpreting this. You know, you have people going back to office and using their offices to subvert investigations and the legal provisions that have allowed us to charge them. It's unacceptable. It's not about politics.
For the national government then, I mean, even some countries, countries generally, but national government, would you want to see more from the appointing authority then?
About what? I mean, when it comes, by the way, when it comes to the executive, the PSs are stepping aside. Yeah, any officer within the central government is stepping aside. The ambassadors have stepped aside. They're not in office. They've stepped aside. Their allowances have been chopped off. They're having half-pay salary. That's what if I had my way, and I'm going to ask Parliament to review this, the salaries also have to be stopped altogether. They can be paid later on, lump sum, if they're innocent. But they should not enjoy those proceeds until we finish the process. Despite them being suspected. But the issue of the constitutional office, the issue of the judiciary, not being able to step aside once they're charged, and even if we're in the High Court or whatever other court adjudicating the matter, they should step aside. And it's unfair then to ask the executive, what are you doing about ensuring that there's conviction? What are you doing about people stepping aside when you have these independent institutions not agreeing not agreeing to have the law applied equally to everybody? Do you have any proposals then for review of these laws so that it's made very clear? The laws are there. If you want it to be you know, like nursery school, then we will go, and I'm going to Parliament to ask section 62(6) of the ASECA to be reviewed, and that subsection 6 to be expunged. What is it then you would like to be judged by ultimately? What will define, I mean, you're at liberty to respond to this, what will define success to you in the war against corruption? Is it convictions, the number of convictions,
high-profile convictions or not, because Kenyans really want to see, they haven't been seeing the so-called big fish behind bars, or is it just arrests and prosecutions?
I think it's both. It's me being able to discharge my duty. It's me being able to charge with whatever evidence I have. At the end of it, you cannot have everybody behind bars. Let's be frank. There are people who will get very good defense lawyers. There are people who will be able to get, off on technicalities. The judges might not accept that the threshold I've presented is enough. We will get convictions. And it's good to get convictions, especially on cases that are very strong. And I will be very particular, strong in the sense that I think even on technicality, we should not have failed. But I think cases, the fact that I'm able to work freely and fairly, that is what is most important.
Important thing to you. Well, talking about working freely and fairly, some talk about political support, especially from the president. He's been very categorical about corruption. And some say these are the investigative agencies, or previously in different regimes, or if we had presidents who were willing to go ahead and support the investigative agencies. I'm not saying President Kenyatta wasn't supporting them. He always said publicly he's supporting all the investigative agencies. Then things would have been different. I mean, first, what would you talk about the support you get? Do you get support? And some actually say this political goodwill, in quotes, could also be interpreted to mean you can be directed to focus on certain specific cases.
You see the problem, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah. You say this, it's a problem. You say you don't have support, it's a problem. So, what would I rather? We are all interdependent, all of us, within the government. That's why you have arms of government. You have the executive, you have parliament, and you have the judiciary. We can't work in a vacuum. I mean, the judiciary cannot function without the executive. Where would they get the budgets from, for example? They can't function with parliament, without parliament. Where would they, get the laws to adjudicate? Where would they get the budgets approved? So you see, once you strain and you start arguing and you're not in sync, then you have these problems. You have one arm trying to say they're supreme, the other arm saying they're independent. Then nothing functions. We must work as people who are interdependent with each other, as one people who are under one roof, which is Kenya, and ensure that the interest of the public interest is what comes first.
Right. Have you so far had a situation of political interference in your work?
No.
Have you come across any?
No, none at all.
Okay. You've been seen again to be working very closely with the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, and there's a feeling ESCC has been excluded from the graft war. In fact, recent media reports have been talking about tough wars between ESCC and the DCI. I mean, are you concerned about this? Have you heard this? Has it been brought to your attention in any way?
It's always.
And what do you think?
It's always news for me. It's always in the papers. It's in the papers, but I've not seen that. We work very well. We work well under the MAT arrangement, the multi-agency task force. We work together in different ways. We do joint trainings. We do joint operations. So I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that?
Maybe the best people to put the question to is the ESCC and the DCI.
Let's talk about some specific cases here. And I'm sure, these are some of the cases that are before courts already. Yeah. First, when do we expect, because you talked about towards the end of this year initially, when do we expect prosecution of those mentioned in the Roraka land scandal?
As soon as we finish what is in court and investigations are complete. We are waiting for financial investigations so that we can identify where they've gone. But we have several matters in court to do with Roraka, which, in my opinion, goes into the very fundamental question of who owns that land. And once that is dispensed of, then we will deal with the file.
But there's still more to come, definitely.
Definitely. And Roraka has many phases. I've said that before. The people are just looking at the primary. But then there's the GSU land. That is another issue that we are still investigating. And soon we'll have all that. Okay. My opinion is that we should consolidate it all at once because it's the same individuals involved.
All right. You talked before about the issue of revisiting and how people are using it politically. It's actually in the affidavit of Justice Philomena Mwilu. Talking about her case, what the critics have been saying, and those arguing for the issue of revisiting, is that, I mean, the case was more of commercial or civil case. Why would it have been criminalized? And why now? Because that case was there since before.
My answer is this. If it was civil, they should have left us litigate it at the magistrate level, so that can be established. What is it that they are afraid of? That's my answer. If indeed we wanted to establish whether it is civil or criminal, then let us litigate it.
You can't please everybody, clearly.
Yeah, I know that, and that's part of the job.
Exactly. But some have been talking about why you're focusing on some cases and leaving others. One of the issues that has been talked about, I'm sure you've heard it from the media, is the shooting of the ESCC of Garissa, and that case, and people saying, why are we not seeing action on it as far as that case is concerned?
I think you need to put that question to the DCI. I'm not the investigating officer. And I have made it very clear, very, very clear. And I think this is something that has really concerned me. Because there are allegations that I'm a family friend to the governor, that I'm part of his clan. I'm not. I come from a different clan. If it's issues of being an acquaintance, he is. If really I'm his clan, then I'm also Idris's clan, because they come from the same clan.
Okay.
Yeah. The issue of clan meetings and elders going to agree to get maybe alternative dispute resolution, I'm not aware of that. I'm not part of it, and I've said it very clearly. When it comes to murder, I will not entertain that. The law has to take its course. Once the file is with me, I will take the appropriate action based on the evidence that I have before me. I will not concoct or base my prosecution on an individual thinking that a certain person was involved. I have to have the evidence. I cannot manufacture the evidence. It has to come from the DCI, who is the person charged with that investigation. Finally, I mean, you've seen many trying to analyze your tenure in office so far, what makes it very interesting. How would you rate your performance so far as the DPP, finally? I think it's not fair to ask me to rate my and the challenges? Well, I think I've enumerated some of the challenges that I have here, because my frustration is once I charge certain individuals who come from certain offices, and I can't get them to face the law as equally as any other Kenyan would. They're able to utilize government resources, public resources. They're able to flex muscles through the offices that they have. They're able to intimidate witnesses and interfere in investigation. Investigations is continuous. They're able to undermine the process itself. I think these are challenges that I'm working towards ensuring that we overcome them. I will go to Parliament to ask for amendments where amendments are required. I will fight through the courts to get the right interpretations of the law so that they are equally applied to everybody, every Kenyan, equally, as envisaged in the Constitution. So far, I would say I'm not happy. You're not happy? I'm not happy because I think if I didn't have these bottlenecks, if I didn't have conservatory orders, if I didn't have, these bottlenecks, I would have done far much more.
Are you engaging the judiciary in this?
Yes, I am engaging the judiciary. It'll probably take time, but I am engaging the judiciary, but engaging it cautiously, so that I'm not accused of
compromising,
or trying to interfere on the independence.
Specific cases or independence.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Noordin Haji is the Director of Public Prosecutions. Thank you so much for making time for Newsnight and for us tonight. It's a difficult job, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Maybe just it's also not fair, as I said before, for people to ask the executive or essentially the president on issues to do with convictions. There's nothing much he can do about it. I'm an independent office. The judiciary is an independent office. I think those questions need to be tabled to the two institutions rather than him and trying to use that as a political mileage against. And I'm not saying this to defend. I'm saying this so that everybody can take responsibility. Everybody, whether it's the prosecutors or the investigators or the judiciary. I think the onus should be placed equally on all of us. It should not always, we have focused for too long on blaming the police. Yeah, I think that needs to stop. Investigations have been done. If they are poor, it's upon me to ensure that, they're working and they're bringing proper evidence. It's upon the judiciary to make sure that once we present the case, they're expeditiously expended with. You cannot blame the prosecutors for the time. We have diaries. Our diaries are subject to the dates that were given by the magistrates or the judges. So,
but you want hastening of some of these cases? Of
course. So that you're not 6 months down the line from today, you're still asking me, where are the convictions? Yet it's beyond me. Yeah? So really, we need to bite the bullet as a country.
I mean, that's a very important point you're raising, and I asked you this question earlier. I don't know who then takes this blame, because ultimately it may end up as a normal blame game of judiciary.
And that's and that's what I'm saying is let's take our respective responsibilities. Let's not push it to others. Let's not ask others to cover us. I think it's no longer tenable to always say that the blame is on the president. We've been given these responsibilities. I've been given this office. It's not the president who's sitting as the DPP. Ask me. It's not the president who's sitting as the Chief Justice. Ask the Chief Justice. I think that needs to be very clear, and Kenyans need to give that support so that we can be able to fight this monster. This is, what is happening in the front of corruption is if not curtailed, will be something that we will regret as a country.
All right, thank you so much. As I said, that's a very difficult job, but so far everybody's happy with how, or most of the Kenyans are happy with how you're doing it. But thank you so much, and wish you the best of luck.